want to welcome everybody to our webinar series. So we've got the first one of a three-part series, our Fuel Supply and Logistics Mastery Series with optimizing the entire fuel supply chain. And today we're going to be talking about, in our session one, is automating the fuel supply. So it's real-time allocation, management, and best buy opportunities. So again, want to welcome everybody today to this session, and hopefully we'll have a really informative slide presentation for you here. So just an introduction from myself, Brent Puzak. I've been in the retail and convenience store industry for over 25 years, also doing consulting, fuel, construction, management, just really a lot of space, a lot of projects in the fuel space. So on the solution consulting side for Titan here, I've been working with clients really to help them kind of optimize how they manage their fuel supply chains, whether it's environmental, whether it's supply and logistics, maintenance, just over the last 3.5 years, and certainly look forward to having this session with you today to really kind of dive a little bit deeper into the supply and allocation management section. Nick, I'll let you introduce yourself here.
Yeah, no, thank you, Brent. So Nick Viola, I am also a senior solutions consultant here at Titan Cloud. I have a wide range of my background, starting off with being a nuclear submarine officer. I've been in operations and manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, fuel, and technology. And I've really been helping companies achieve their goals, whether that's revenue, cost reduction, or mitigating risk through data, technology, and processes. So really happy to be here today.
Just to dive in on the Titan Cloud overview. So we have about 85,000 sites on our platform today. Our organization has been in operation since 2012, maybe even a little bit earlier than that aspect of it. But we have over 50% of the retail fuel population in the U.S. actually leverages our platform in some form or fashion to be able to kind of manage their fuel infrastructures. And then, from a global standpoint, we've got over 700 clients that actually are utilizing our platform, not just in the North America, but also from a global standpoint. And overall, you can kind of see our mix of the different industries we serve. So as our platform has kind of grown, we've integrated into these other segments and the other businesses and providing benefit within those areas as well. So Nick, I'll let you kind of share about the supply chain.
Yeah. So our customers and really the entire fuel industry is very complex. So the problems that we're solving are very broad and deep. So starting with the downstream, there's the inherent risk with storing that fuel that comes with regulations and requirements, which I'm sure a lot of us in the fuel industry have understood and focus on today. And it's really around ensuring that we're protecting the public. But then there's also the operations that you have within either a retail store or whatever it is that you have where you have your storage tank. That encompasses several stakeholders, from your third-party vendors to customers and even critical teams such as the fuel side, maintenance, and even accounting. And then from the internal side, they all have different but really related goals and problems that they must overcome to ensure that you're operating your business as efficiently as possible. Like, for example, maintenance teams need to fix the nozzle that is down, but that nozzle down impacts customer satisfaction, which ultimately impacts your revenue. And then the last kind of part of this supply chain complexity is on the upstream side, which is in the operation of your supply and logistics of fuel, which we're going to focus today our webinar on. So ultimately, how do you get fuel from the terminal to the storage tanks in the most profitable execution while dealing with those real world constraints like demand changes, allocation constraints, and even fuel supply at the terminal? So ultimately, many issues across your entire operation arise due to really a lack of that connectivity to data and gauges. And then in turn, that visibility to what's actually happening, which then impacts your ability as a business to control your fuel assets and operations.
Nick, I'd take a second just to kind of call out. I mean, historically, when you kind of take a look at the retail industry space, right, is that it's been very segmented, right? There's it's very siloed. There's not a lot of cross-functional communication between the teams, or if there is, it can be very broken and segmented. So I think when you kind of look at the supply chain, we're connecting all of these different areas, and we provide a significant amount of data and analytics to help you better run your businesses. And the values we're kind of capturing in these functional areas are really the benefits that organizations can expect to achieve by leveraging that cross-functional value.
Exactly.
So a lot of great points there. Yeah. Yeah, and when you're looking at this from our overall module, our overall platform, right? I mean, a lot of companies come in. We initially started out specializing in the compliance segment, but as we talked about in the earlier slide, is we really now are very much cross-functional in the other functional spaces. So not only just helping organizations kind of prevent new releases into the environment, help them mitigate exposure for compliance-related issues, but really, diving into helping them reduce operational write-offs due to fuel loss, helping them address customer impacts due to flow rate issues or nozzle down events or equipment down events, and then tying all that together by helping them kind of reduce operational costs that might be due to lack of visibility for construction or maintenance-related issues, but kind of streamlining that workflow so it's very seamless and efficient to help them kind of maximize efficiency across their teams and minimize operational costs. And ultimately, what we're going to be talking about today is really in this supply and logistics segment, which you're going to dive into here, just kind of give the groups a better view of what we're actually talking about.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brian. So our entire webinar series is going to span across our entire supply and logistics solution. And so diving a little deeper into this within our platform, we start at the terminal and end at the dispenser to include all the data that goes into your back office. So we have 4 modules within our supply and logistics solution, starting with the first one, which again is the focus of the day around supply management. So dealing with contracts and allocation along with best buys. So how do you take advantage of off-contract rack pricing? And then the next module within here is the forecasted inventory management, where we take your product or tank consumption, so essentially the sales going through that, to create a forecast and then auto-generate orders based on that forecast. And once those orders are created, we then prioritize them and send them over to our dispatch and logistics solution, where teams can dispatch to their own drivers or carriers. You even automate all of this in tracking a real-time status of their deliveries. And then lastly, as the supply and logistics operations is running, all of that data is connected and collected across our platform to feed into our exception management system, which then reconciles those deliveries in real time and alerts the specific users, whether it's a dispatch team or accounting team, when issues arise, such as a missed delivery, a cross drop, or even a wrong drop. So again, today, what we're going to focus on is our supply management, so our module within Titan Cloud. Really, to start off, let's talk about the goals and objectives of fuel supply. So when dealing with fuel supply, there are 2 integral teams that are working in parallel to really maximize the business profits. You have the fuel supply team or procurement, and you may have a different name, but who's actually going and establishing where and when you can get that fuel. So establishing that buy strategy. And then the other team is really the dispatching logistics team, whether it's in-house or outsourced, that's going to execute that buy strategy and trying to optimize the transportation side. So each team has their own objectives and metrics, but really they are very tightly linked together. So the fuel team utilizes a combination of contracts and spot buys from the rack to fulfill the strategic objectives of really, 1, ensure there is enough fuel to keep those locations wet, whether it's your own stores or your customers. And then 2, really secure it at the best price possible for the dispatch team to then go execute. The fuel supply team needs to balance the constant need for fuel availability along with reducing those costs over the long term. And so any lapse in supply can lead to costly penalties, higher freight costs, or really even worse, locations running dry, which would severely impact that downstream revenue. At the same time, the dispatch team focuses on delivering that fuel at the lowest cost possible, mainly focused on those freight costs. And they require a lot of insights into the terminal supplier allocations and product accessibility, And really, their efficiency is truly dependent on those insights. And any delay or miscalculation can directly increase those costs, whether through penalties or just increase drivers on the road and burning fuel. So together, these teams' performance metrics really revolve around revenue and cost management. And at the company level, fuel sales are that primary revenue driver. So without fuel at each location where you can get it, ultimately revenue can just stop. But at the same time, you're really trying to manage this cost of goods sold and on the fuel side and minimizing those transportation expenses. And that's really key to maximizing or optimizing your profit margins.
Just thinking about kind of the current state of the industry, one of the things that we see across the fuel supply chains, the supply and the dispatch and logistics team, is that communication is kind of fractured. And a lot of that is really due to the technology and the processes that are being utilized across the teams to be able to manage their systems. So, the supply teams they're manually tracking their allocations by kind of logging into the individual supplier websites and actually checking their lift volumes, checking the allocations amounts, and they're transposing that information into the different spreadsheets and systems that they have to kind of track those across the different terminals. So when it comes to taking advantage for rack prices, it's really a manual process of kind of collecting and performing the calculations associated with kind of determining the profitability of the contracts, so off contract buying. So the dispatching team also relies on other point solutions, whether it be kind of software systems or Excel. It's not directly connected to the fuel supplier system. So they're spending a lot of time with emails, with other messaging that's kind of coming through to kind of close gaps that are occurring between that communication, that information sharing. So, it's challenging when things occur across these areas where the drivers may need to be redirected to a new terminal, where they're already overallocated or underallocated for those. That communication is really very, very slow and inefficient. So, we see that these multiple systems are really manual, and they create kind of a significant limitation within within all the teams kind of involved here. So communication between that supply and that dispatching team is really sluggish, and sometimes the data that those teams may be sharing is inaccurate. So this is leading to the allocations and the visibility is just very, very, very poor and problematic. So it can drive kind of over and under allocate really around what's actually being received from the supplier, and it can really it doesn't necessarily show on the loads that haven't necessarily been lifted. So it doesn't give them that visibility. So moreover, manual spot buying processes lead to missed opportunities. Calculations may not fully account for all factors such as pricing and freight cost. And by the time the teams identifies profitable opportunities that require the loads, the loads may already be dispatched and lifted from those locations. So this disconnect not only creates operational inefficiencies, but also risk to the strategic objectives that all the teams kind of have. So this leads to increased cost, reduced profitability, and potential supply chain disruptions for this. So Nick, I think you were going to kind of read through the questions or the responses there.
Yeah, so there were a couple that came in and we just reposted it again, but around some other metrics or time or productivity. Those were some that were coming in, and really that's related to this particular slide and how quickly can you go execute changes or your strategy between the different teams, which then ultimately roll up into the strategic metrics that we talked about before. So this is really good understanding that you have those direct kind of like P&L metrics along with some proxy metrics that judge where your team goes or how they're operating on a day-to-day basis.
Perfect.
All right. So now separate from the kind of like the high level, there are some nuances within the industry. There are branded fuel companies or contracts that face unique challenges when it comes to managing their supply chain. And the branded side, you can't take advantage of spot buys, but you must meticulously track those allocations, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, annually, and everywhere in between. And during fuel supply disruptions, whether it's hurricanes, unplanned refinery shutdowns, or really any other unexpected events, it's critical to quickly communicate those new allocation volumes, alternate locations, or even updated load codes to your dispatching team. And then this ensures that your operations can continue working smoothly, even when supply is constrained or there's that unexpected event. Now, for the unbranded side, the complexity increases even more. Unbranded, you also have to balance those spot buys based on your supply strategy. So for instance, if your strategy is 80% contracted and 20% spot buy, how do you actually determine whether the rack price is profitable? Even if the price per gallon is less than your contracts, is it out of a different terminal that will cost you more in freight to lift and drop? How do you actually decide whether to pull from that rack or stick with your contract? Especially when you need to know whether you're ahead or behind on your obligations or your allocations. And if your company operates in kind of both of those realms of branded and unbranded fuels, along with that mix of contract versus spot buy strategy with the unbranded side, there's a lot of levers that you can pull on where and what you want to lift your fuel. So really determining the least costly and most profitable option is just even harder. And regardless of whether you're branded or unbranded, or even a mix of in between, time is of the essence. You need to quickly relay all that information to your dispatching team so they can execute efficiently. Any delays in that communication can lead to penalties, extra fees, and again, runouts. Additionally, if you don't act fast, trucks will end up burning more fuel, drivers on the road for a longer time. And when it comes to those spot buys, or when you're trying to find fuel when fuel is constrained, other companies can go and seize that opportunity before you do. So in this high stakes environment, speed and accuracy of your decisions and the communication of those decisions directly impact your bottom line. Effective analysis and coordination between the fuel supply team and the dispatch team is really essential to avoid those unnecessary costs and capitalize on every opportunity in this rapidly changing market environment.
Yeah, thanks, Dick. Yeah, and when you think about the differences between the branded and unbranded segments, I think managing allocations becomes even more complex when you factor in both internal fleets and third-party haulers or carriers that supplement your fleet capacity. For your internal fleets, drivers typically coordinate or operate within a specific region or terminal and need to know the exact load codes to ensure that they're pulling from the correct supplier. The dispatch loads must match or be less than the allocated volumes before the fuel can be lifted at those locations. Any disruptions in this process means longer hours for your drivers and more miles on your trucks, directly impacting your operating cost. When it comes to your carriers, whether they operate ad hoc or they have a dedicated or specific locations that they lift from, they require specific and precise information tied to the supply contracts, like terminal suppliers and the products, and specifically the load codes. Once the carrier accepts the loads, their total volume must also align with allocation limits. Additionally, carriers often charge a premium compared to internal fleets, leading to extra fees to top off to add to the top the drivers pay additional fuel cost. The situation becomes even more challenging when they're operating within a mixed model between internal fleets and third-party haulers. How do you ensure that they have enough allocation available across both of those entities? Effectively communicating across different teams and organizations is critical, but it's also fraught with a lot of challenges. One of the major difficulties is ensuring real-time visibility to allocations and the statuses across both the internal and the external resources. Another challenge is coordinating adjustments when unforeseen events and overallocations or supply disruptions require quick adjustments within your teams. Additionally, balancing the cost and managing different pricing structures for the internal fleets and the third-party haulers adds another layer of complexity on top of what we've already kind of been talking about. So navigating these challenges requires a robust and integrated approach to managing your entire fuel supply chain, from the allocation tracking to the communication, to ensure that all of this approach is both efficient and cost effective.
That's right. So, so in sum, we're looking at this at a kind of a strategic, larger challenge between different teams and how they operate, along with the ultimate goal of the company, which is to maximize profit. So again, one of the most pressing challenges in the fuel supply chain is really that limited monitoring of your contract allocations. And then again, this leads to that overpulling or underpulling, creating extra fees and penalties. And then those penalties will ultimately impact your bottom line. Now, another significant issue is pulling from suboptimal supply points. So whether that's through a contract or spot buys, where do you actually pick up your fuel and lift it to then drop it off to the specific locations that need that fuel? And when these decisions are made without comprehensive data, you really risk increasing your freight and fuel costs, which add that unnecessary strain on your operational budget. So dispatchers, they face their own challenges, often sending drivers or carriers to terminals that don't have available product or that allocated product. And then this misalignment not only leads to sites hitting runout levels, but also escalates again those costs as trucks need to travel further or wait longer to lift that fuel. And the reality is that these challenges are interconnected. Limited visibility and poor communication between fuel supply and dispatching teams are exacerbating these issues. And when allocation management and spot buying aren't optimized, the entire operation suffers. Again, increased costs, penalties, and inefficiencies become the norm. And then these challenges really highlight the critical need for an integrated approach to fuel supply management. And without it, you're not just risking operational inefficiencies, you're also impacting the top and bottom line. As Brent, we heard before in the original poll, it's a split. Mainly, it's a lot of management with the Excel spreadsheets. Some are in-ground systems and some are third-party systems or outsourced. So it's really, how do you actually bring the strategic challenge together?
Absolutely, Nick. Yeah, and so just to dive a little bit deeper, when we start thinking about our solutions, right? So to kind of help companies overcome these challenges, they need to look at capabilities that can kind of bring everything together. First, being able to kind of manage all of their contracts and day deals and allocations in one central place is absolutely critical, right? Is just that centralized approach. This capability ensures that both supply and logistics teams are aligned and working on the same information in almost real time. Next, they're having a best buy system, right, where they can automate the fuel purchases and their decisions based on real time data. This is essential for making informed buying choices that optimize profitability, that optimize the overall profitability there. So this system needs to account for both fuel prices and freight cost, ensuring that every decision is a financially sound decision. Titan, as Titan Cloud, we offer a robust solution within our supply management module that addresses all of these needs. So our platform provides a centralized data solution that manages both buy and sell contracts, including direct connections with pricing data for market-based indexed and indexed optionality pricing for your fuel. This centralization extends to all the load codes, as well as configurable tables and freight rates, accessorial fees, and also the surcharges for the sites as well. So if you think about integrating all of these contracts and costs within a connected platform, so it's coupled with a dispatch module, we're able to ensure that you're able to manage allocations effectively by tracking every load, whether dispatched to a driver or to a third-party carrier. And this tracking allows you to monitor how much is left on your allocations, and what amounts are actually there for each of the contracts, ensuring that you never overpull or underpull from each one of those contracts. And if you think about it, moreover, right, it's since the system has all the necessary data to determine off-contract spot buying, we can automate the process of maximizing profitability. This automation ensures that the dispatch team receives information quickly, and it also allows the team to act before your competitors have a chance to act on the information. So this integrated approach not only optimizes your fuel purchases, but it also streamlines the communication gaps between the supply and logistics teams that we were kind of mentioning in the earlier discussions for it. So this, by doing this, we're also helping you kind of reducing the risk of any costly areas and the inefficiencies that we were kind of talking about in the earlier state of the industry segment for it. So, by leveraging the Titan Cloud supply management solution, we can help you kind of bridge that gap between your supply and your logistics team and kind of centralize all that data so that better decision making and ultimately help you kind of reduce that fuel operating cost, those challenges that you're having, and helping kind of stay ahead of all of the complexities that we were kind of talking about in the overall market.
Yep, that's right. And to go in a little deeper into our contract and allocation management capability, let's start by examining how we handle each supply contract. So our platform meticulously tracks every detail from the products, the terminals, the suppliers, pricing, load codes, and most importantly, those allocation quantities within a given time period, along with any penalties that are associated with that contract. And these allocations are broken down into the combination of that time frame of daily, weekly, monthly, annual targets, as well as their respective minimums and maximums. So, for example, if you have a contract that specifies 100,000 gallons per day, you might have to pool a minimum of 90% or 90,000 gallons, a maximum of 120%, which again equates to 120,000 gallons, where if you go under or over these limits, that could trigger that penalty. And so we're tracking all of that within our platform. And so once your contracts and allocations are established, we automatically calculate your remaining allocation for any given period down to the transactional level. So as Brent mentioned, we're connected across these different solutions within the platform. So with each dispatch order, we reserve or really temporarily subtract the necessary allocation that you just sent out with that load to prevent sending multiple loads. So if you have 100,000 gallons, but you send out 110, today you don't see that allocation amount until you actually lift that fuel. We're reserving it or temporarily subtracting it as you push that order out before those drivers lift that fuel. And it could be your drivers, your carriers, or really that combination of them or both. And so when that load is finally lifted and delivered, we call it's booked or officially documented that now a part of the terminal and supplier have it booked on their allocation. We have it booked on our allocation. It's all the way down to that transactional level. And these individual reservations and bookings are then rolled up to reflect your allocation status over that designated period. So this process allows you to quickly determine whether you're ahead or behind your obligations and meeting those allocation requirements. And so really this level of insight gives you the power to manage both from overpulling or underpulling to ensure you stay within those contractual limits and ultimately minimize your costs. And so moreover, your buying strategy is now directly linked to execution, and your dispatch teams gain that immediate visibility into potential allocation issues. So this capability really eliminates for that slow or manual communication process or even incomplete analysis or even the risk of operating without full visibility. Our platform ensures that everyone from the procurement side or supply fuel team, whatever you call your team, but the upstream side, all the way to dispatch, that you're working on the same information in real time, which streamlines, again, operations and reduces that risk of costly errors. So in essence, our contract and allocation management system gives you very precise control over your fuel supply chain, allowing you to optimize for cost and operational efficiencies.
So now that we have kind of the visibility into your allocations and the remaining volumes kind of across your contracts, we can effectively deploy our best buy functionality. So this allows you to determine the optimal location and supplier to maximize your profitability across your deals. Pricing data is kind of built directly into your contracts within our system, which we're pulling from sources like Opus, DTN, Platts, Axis, Argus, and NYMEX. And we can utilize this same connection to receive kind of rack pricing information across those platforms as well. Once we have that information, we also consider the weighted average cost of the fuel, and then in any of your bulk tanks to kind of compare against the pricing. And additionally, we as we discussed earlier, we also integrate the freight rates for each of your contracts into the system, giving us a comprehensive view of all of your costs. So the final piece of the puzzle here is the required order volumes, where we, with this data in our platform, we kind of calculate the locations to lift the fuel, which is kind of considered our best buy opportunity. So just kind of walk through an example of what we're talking about here. So if you consider kind of a 10,000 gallon load of fuel from where there's 4 terminals to kind of pull from outside of the Houston area, we have contracts in place at terminals 1, 3, and 4 within a specific pricing and with specific pricing and freight rates. And what we see is that Terminal 2 offers a rack price of about $2.35 per gallon and a competitive freight rate. But when we calculate the total cost within the platform, Terminal 2 kind of emerges as the best option, followed by Terminal 1. But however, Terminal 1 lacks enough allocation to fill the 10,000 gallon load, and Terminal 2 doesn't have sufficient available volume as well, right? So then that just leaves us terminals 3 and 4, as viable options for pulling. So although Terminal 3 offers a better freight rate, Terminal 4 is the most cost-effective option when considering both the freight rates and fuel price. By utilizing the best buy capability, you'll be empowered to align your fuel buying strategy more closely with your execution strategy. You can also start taking advantage of better fuel pricing by connecting available tank volumes and ullage with demand, allowing you to pull in and push out the best options to increase profitability. We'll take an opportunity in our subsequent webinars, series 2 and 3, to really dive deeper into a lot more advanced strategies within this. But Nick, I think you're going to take a few seconds just to kind of review the status of the poll that we just posted.
It's really substantial in your goals. And so from the disconnect between the supply and logistics team to the challenges of tracking allocations, and even what we've heard in the last poll, it's clear that the current state is not working out, whether it's inefficiencies or increased costs, or you're not satisfied with the automation of increasing that possibility. And that stems, again, what we heard from the poll is manual processes or fragmented systems. And a lack of centralized data, it contributes to the over and under pulling and ultimately all of these costs that are involved with this complexity. So our solution, again, simplifies this complexity by providing that single connected platform and allows you to integrate all of your operational data from the supply contracts and allocations of real-time pricing and freight rates. And so by doing so, we can reduce fuel supply costs by 25 to 75 basis points if you're able to take advantage of the spot buys. And you can make better buying decisions on that best buy or spot buy with this capability and having it directly tied to execution. Additionally, utilizing our platform offers up to, we've seen customers of receiving $1 million in annual freight cost savings by giving you better visibility and control over those allocations, which help you avoid those costly penalties or extra fees. And in turn, having that, not only do you avoid those costs, you improve fleet utilization, carrier performance, and driver performance. And so with our system, you can know for sure that you're actually impacting directly those particular metrics and goals. So ultimately, we empower you to reduce that system complexity, streamline those operations, and drive substantial cost savings, all while using fewer resources. And so by connecting every aspect of your fuel supply chain, starting with the supply management side that we talked about today, you can operate more efficiently, improve that profitability, stay ahead of the competition.
Yeah, great points, Nick. And when you look at it just from an answer to the surveys here, right? I mean, it looks like that about 67% of the participants here really focused on reducing operational costs. So a lot of the things we're sharing here is and the tremendous value of our platform is how do we help organizations actually do that? We have about 70% respectively across being able to integrate new technology or new systems, and also expanding compliant supplier partnerships within that. So again, wanted to thank you guys for the input on the survey. Nick, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add on that one as well.
Nope. I think we can move into the next step.
Perfect. Yeah. So certainly appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully the content that we were sharing here was very informative for it. Right. So, ultimately it's a part of the broader series that we're putting in here. We've got another webinar that's coming up on the 25th of September at 2 p.m. That's really around streamlining your forecasting, optimizing dispatch, and really everything in between. So we look forward to having you guys participate in that one as well, and even the third webinar series here. Yeah, and with that, everyone, we'll kind of close out this webinar series for today, and look forward to to seeing all of you guys on the September 25th webinar at 2 p.m. So appreciate everybody's time and input. Hope everybody has an amazing day.
All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate the time.
Thanks.